Hey everyone, welcome back to Mr. Geopolitics, and today we're going to be discussing the latest developments in Ukraine. I'm going to try to make this another quick video. There's a few developments to talk about, three main ones. So let's get right into it. First of all, again, notice the disparity in firepower. Russians are in charge with the artillery, rockets, mortars, whatever, 10 to 20 times as much as the Ukrainians. Notice all these clusters. Yeah, so Ukraine only has a couple right here in Kherson where they're going on their offensive. That's what we're going to focus on first. Kherson, the Kherson offensive. So the only place that counts right now is the David region, I believe it's called. The Davidiv breed region. So the Davidiv breed region, they call it. And this is the Ingulets River, which is really important because yesterday what the Russians did is they took out 3 of the pontoon bridges that the Ukrainians had established on the Ingulets River to establish their bridgehead. So the Russians took out Ukraine's pontoon bridges. And just so you know, what you see here in the blue on the blue to the right, so the blue on blue to the east is what the Russians claim they control. Bilohirka and Bila Krenitsia. And the Russians say they established a land bridge to Bila Krenitsia, which was for a while a little enclave, which was isolated. But they were able to establish a land bridge across the Ingulets through this, using this little forest as cover, I guess. So the Russians did that. And yesterday, the Russians were they took out the Ukrainian pontoon bridges. They were trying to kind of create a somewhat of an encirclement. So they went for this little village of Ternivka. And just so you know, guys, all these little settlements, we call them villages, settlements, hamlets. Some people call them hamlets, but they're really just road junctions. Like they're just a road. Like this is like probably like 2,000 feet by 1,000 feet. So this is or 900 meters by 600 meters. This is really just a little village at the most, with a few dozen houses at most. All of these settlements. Anyways, so the Russians, what they did is they went for Ternivka. Right, so they went for Ternivka in an attempt to go in this general direction and encircle the Ukrainians yet again, with just 5 miles to Bila Krenitsia, or a more solid encirclement would be one more, like 5.7 miles to Bilohirivka. So they tried to go for Ternivka, and they took Ternivka. The Russians were able to take Ternivka. Just give me a second here. I'm messing with this. But what ended up happening is the Ukrainians sent reinforcements, and they sent reinforcements from this town called, I'm going to try to do this, Berez Nehuate. So from Berez Nehuate, they sent reinforcements, the Ukrainians, and some of these reinforcements include the Leopard tank. Apparently Leopard 2 tanks from Italy, even though we've heard news that Germany has forbidden like Spain from giving Ukraine, their leopards, Leopard 2s. But that might have been because those Leopard 2s were sitting. The Spanish Leopard 2s were actually in storage for years and years. They were basically write-offs that they were trying to revive. But apparently, Italian Leopard 2s, their crews have got their basic training out of the way, and now they went from Berez-Huate from the town of Berez-Huate to the village of Berez-Huate. And then from there, the Ukrainians went south to Ternivka. And the Ukrainians, they took Ternivka. So the Ukrainians were able to take back Ternivka, this little village. And then the Ukrainians also did something peculiar. They brought a bunch of dump trucks with gravel and sand, and they poured gravel and sand on a part of the Inglitz River. Not enough to block the river and cause some kind of flooding, but just enough so that their tanks and armored vehicles and infantry could cross. So they did that, but you know what's peculiar? What's interesting is the Russians did not take out their own pontoon bridge, which they had built to get to Ternivka. So the Russians could easily do that with artillery or whatever, bombs, but they didn't do that. Maybe they want the Leopard 2s to sit behind some Tigers in Moscow as propaganda. I don't know. That would be the ultimate propaganda win. Maybe I don't know. But anyways, the Russians didn't take out their bridge. And the Ukrainians, with their pontoon bridges taken out on the Inglitz River, they used the Russian pontoon bridge, but just in case, they poured sand and concrete. Sand and, just sand, stones, whatever, just to solidify the ground enough just to get their tanks across. Sand and gravel. Anyways, using that route, the Ukrainians were able to take the village of Blahodativka. And this is like a little salient that's sticking out, and the Russians also withdrew from this village. So the Ukrainians took this village because up till then they had no way of getting to their troops who were in Sukhi Stavok and to the south. But the Ukrainians, despite their pontoon bridges having been destroyed by the Russians on the Inglitz River, they were able to cross and get to Blahodativka. And there's a road in Blahodativka which leads to another road which basically gives you access to the fields so they could get to Sukhi Stavok. Now, some people are saying they're doing this because their forces are stuck in a cauldron and they're trying to get them out. They're just sending a rescue force. But some are saying that the Ukrainians, nope, they're not giving up on this area. This is the only area in the Kherson offensive where they've really had any, decent success. So, yeah, there's some people are saying they're sending more reinforcements. Now, we know that previously the Ukrainians got to Sukhi Stavok, then they went to Kostromka, the village of Kostromka, then they got to Bruskinsk, and the Russians pushed them out right away. And the reason they did that is because this highway, the T-2207, which Bruskinsk is connected to, a part of, it goes through Bruskinsk, basically connects to all the settlements that the Russians control right on the border with the Ukrainian controlled territory. So all these settlements right by the Ukrainian controlled territory, that basically are, if you look carefully, all these Russian settlements that they control are basically right behind the Inglitz River, up to this point, up to Arkhangelsk. Why? Because the river acts as a barrier. So the river acts as a natural barrier, so the Russians control all the area east of the river. And the T-2207 highway is basically the lifeline for all these settlements. So when the Ukrainians threatened that lifeline, right? When they threatened that lifeline by going for Bruskinsk, the Russians pushed them back. They pushed them back immediately. And then the Ukrainians decided to go, okay, we couldn't advance east, we're going to go south. So then they went for the town of Shasliv, and they took Shasliv. Okay, they took Shasliv, and then they tried to go east again towards the T-22 highway, the T-2207 highway, that vital highway. Again, they were repulsed. Then they said, okay, we're going to go west. And then they took the village of Bezimen. Let's zoom in a little bit. And you can see that Bezimen is more like looks like a field, or looks like there's one little road here, looks like an L, and it's mostly just fields. This whole area is just flat fields, which is not very advantageous for going on the offensive, right? You can't hide behind anything, really. Anyways, so the Ukrainians basically had a little bridgehead at one point like this up till yesterday. But the Russians basically, from all sides, they began bombing them with artillery, rockets, bombing runs, tanks, you name it, and they began surrounding them. So the Russians cut off this bridgehead. The Ukrainians don't control these two villages anymore. And now the Ukrainians control Sukhi Stavok and Kostromka, but they're sending reinforcements from Blahodativka after taking Blahodativka, and before that they took Ternivka, and so there's Leopard 2s involved. Maybe the whole point is that the Russians are trying to get the Leopard 2s, but you know what it seems to me like? It seems as if the Russians do not want to engage the Ukrainians. The Russians their goal seems to be to inflict as much damage as possible. So they inflict the damage, but if they're overwhelmed, they don't try to hold the position, they leave the position, and then they let their artillery and air force do the work as the Ukrainians go deeper and deeper into their territory. And then eventually the Russians try to encircle the Ukrainians. So the Ukrainians have said recently that this is not going to be a fast offensive. This is a long-term offensive, and their goal is to grind down the enemy. But it seems like the Russians are doing a better job grinding down the Ukrainians, because the Russians are basically inflicting damage and destroying as many Ukrainian units as they can, while sustaining as few casualties as possible themselves. And they don't care if they would have to withdraw from a village. It's a tactical withdrawal. They just withdraw, let their artillery do the work. And, the Ukrainians, the deeper they go, the more vulnerable they are to Russian artillery, which outnumbers them 10 to 1 at least, Russian rockets, mortars, ambush squads, ATGMs, anti-tank guided munitions, you name it, snipers. So according to the Russians, right now the Ukrainians have sustained 3,000 killed in action. So that's according to the Russians. The Ukrainians have 3,000 killed in action. Now the word casualty means killed, injured, captured, or missing. The rate is 1 to 3. For every 1 killed, there's 3 who are injured, captured, or missing. So then you do the math. If the Russians are telling the truth, the Ukrainians have 12,000 casualties. If the Russians are not telling the truth and they're lying by half, the Ukrainians have 6,000 casualties. But anyways, the Ukrainians, it seems like they're determined to push forward. And it might be possible that the Russians might even put a prize on one of those leopards. They might really want to capture one of those leopards. I mean, imagine putting a Leopard 2 from 2022 next to a Tiger 2 from, 1942. That would be the ultimate propaganda win for Putin. The best selfie ever for Putin. The best selfie in his whole life. Anyways, let me show you another map of that, since my map kind of sucks. I'm not a professional mapper, but Rybar is, and Rybar, he shows how they took the town of Ternivka, I believe. Ternivka, then Blahodativka. So he shows how the Ukrainians took that town, then they took Blahodativka, and this is Sukhi Stavok. Is freaking fruit, man. Sukhi Stavok. So this right here is Sukhi Stavok, and if you notice, Rybar isn't showing this area in blue. So he's not showing that the Ukrainians have captured it indefinitely. He's showing that it's being contested. It's basically in the gray zone, right? And this is the town, the village I was talking about, which was isolated for a while, but now it's connected again, right? So that's the village of Bila Krinitsia, which is now connected to Bilohirivka, which is now connected to the rest of the Russian territory. So that's according to Rybar. And you can see they came, the Ukrainian reinforcements and with the Leopard 2s came from this town, which I am not going to try to name again, and they went all the way down, and now there's reinforcements, and they've established a connection with their bridgehead again through gravel, sand, and the Russians' own pontoon bridge. Anyways, that's it for the Kherson offensive, counteroffensive. So believe it or not, the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Okay, so the Ukrainians, they gave it one shot. That was I think 2 days ago. They sent some speedboats with 60 commandos on the east side of the nuclear power plant, which is the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe, Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. So the Ukrainians on speedboats sent commandos, and they landed somewhere around here, and the Russians spotted them right away, the Russian guards, and they engaged them, and then Russian helicopters and tanks engaged them, and they killed 50 or more of them. 4 or 5 are prisoner, and the rest are in the hospital, or in, some say, in critical condition, clinging on to life. That was 60 of them. That was 2 days ago. And then at the same time, the second wave 2 days ago, they came on barges, but this is a picture of one of the barges. There was 2 barges. These barges, they're usually, I believe they usually either self-propelled, they move very slowly, or they're towed with a tugboat. And they usually have containers on top of them. But the Ukrainians use their barge ships, and they try to be really sneaky, and they try to land really close to the nuclear power plant, to the west side of it, really close to it. But the Russians basically destroyed those barges, and some say each barge had 100 troops on it. Assuming they were both destroyed, with most of the troops killed on it, that would be 250 troops the Russians killed. That was like 2 days ago, the day the IAEA inspectors came, the International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors, the nuclear watchdog, came to the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Now, today, what has happened is, this is on South Front, Kiev's forces made second failed attempt to capture Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. So the numbers, there's contradicting evidence or contradicting claims, but apparently what the Ukrainians did is this time they sent like a couple dozen sailboats. I forget exactly how many. They sent a couple dozen of these sailboats. I guess the barge didn't work out for them, so they sent these sailboats, and they tried to land, but they were spotted, and the sailboats were engaged by Russian Su-30 jets and attack helicopters, and they were almost entirely wiped out. Some of them made it back to shore, the Ukrainian side, to the north, and that's when the Russian heavy artillery pounded those boats, and apparently we don't know their fate, but some of those might have also been destroyed. So some say that was another 250 commandos. I mean, this sounds like something out of a Hollywood script. Like, it sounds like a James Bond movie, right? Send commandos and take over the nuclear power plant and whatever. It sounds like a good script, but maybe that's where Zelensky got his idea, since he's been in so many movies. But in real life, things are different. It's not a video game. This is not a movie, Zelensky. This is real life. Snap out of it. No, I'm just kidding. So that's that. So between those 2 days, the Ukrainians could have lost, you could argue they lost at least 100 on each of those days, or 200. Depends what you want to believe. Something else I have to mention before we wrap this up. Nord Stream. So Russia is claiming that there's a leak at one of their pumping stations, and therefore they have stopped supplying the EU with natural gas. They've stopped supplying the EU with natural gas. And also, they have stopped today, after that second attack, they have stopped supplying Ukraine with electricity from the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. And that's a big hit to Ukraine, because winter's coming, and all these regions to the north of the nuclear power plant, they were depending on this nuclear power plant for electricity. It's the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe, Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, and it supplies 20% of Ukraine's electricity. So anyways, they've cut off the electricity to Ukraine by 20%. They've cut off the natural gas to Europe. But the Russians are saying, well, it's a spill. The Europeans are saying, even one spill on one of the pumps shouldn't stop the flow, because there's several pumps at that station. But anyways, I think this is what this is really about is the G7 agrees on oil price cap as Moscow threatens to halt gas supply to Europe. I think that's what this is really about, because the Europeans and the Americans are basically saying that Putin, Russia has made a fortune on the price of natural gas, and this is because of the war in Ukraine, and this is all set up, and it's he's artificially inflating the price. The price of natural gas went up what was it, like 400% since the war started. So anyways, the Europeans and the Americans are saying we're going to put a price cap on Russia. At first they were saying the only companies that insure, that are willing to insure oil deliveries are oil deliveries, like oil ships. I can't find the right word, but the only companies that are willing to insure ships that are transporting oil or liquefied natural gas are actually based out of the UK and the US. So they said that we can set a price. We can set a price cap. We can determine the price instead of the market or Russia determining the price, because we can just simply refuse to insure the ships. But then the Russians countered, and the Russians said, well, we'll just insure it. And then the Russians started insuring their own ships that were delivering oil. But this is not about that. This is about a price cap on the price of Russian oil. And in response, the Russians have said that they're going to cut off the natural gas supply to Europe if the Russians try to control the oil price. Now, what do I think? I think that the Europeans are deluded, just like the previous sanctions backfired, and now, the ruble is at a 5-year high. And the price of gasoline is like 70 cents a liter in Russia, whereas in the US it's like 150 to 170 a liter. So almost, like double, more than double. So just like that backfired, I think this will also backfire on the Europeans, because usually in an open market, the buyer doesn't set the price. The price is set by the market. The price is set by supply and demand. So I don't know. The Europeans are trying to play God here. They're trying to wave a magic wand, and I don't know how much leverage they think they have. But winter's coming up, and if it's an intense winter, then the Europeans might have to implement rationing. They might have to implement electricity rationing and even electricity cuts. So the thing about Russia, a lot of people don't know this, but Russia has a massive, massive war chest ever since Crimea, because when they took Crimea, the Europeans imposed sanctions on Russia. The ruble lost half its value. And then after that, since then, the Russians have been preparing, and the Russians have built up enough savings. They've paid off all their debts. They have enough savings so that even if they had no income, so even if the Russians had no income, which they do, and they have, but if the Russians had no income, they could still pay their budget for 2 years. That is how much money, funds, gold, diamonds, whatever, precious metals the Russians have saved up in their war chest. Now, what does Europe have saved up? I don't know. Only time will tell how this will turn out, but I don't know. Let's wait and find out, guys. Anyways, that's it for today. This video ended up being longer than I wanted it to be, but we covered 3 topics, and I'm satisfied. So please like and subscribe, and make sure you comment, share with your friends. If you agree with me, disagree with me, let's talk. Comment below. And anyways, guys, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks.